Unique situation. In 2011, we find ourselves in a unique position in the United States, and that is that we have a Congress in which the conservative Republican Tea Party controls the House of Representatives and has a very strong majority. And in the Senate, the Republicans also can control enough votes that in the Senate, the Democrats can't pass legislation unless the Republicans agree, because there's this thing called a filibuster. And a filibuster is when you can have senators basically stop legislation from being voted on by debating and by essentially preventing closure, preventing from the Senate from actually passing the legislation. And the only way that you can end the filibuster and then force a vote is if you have 60 votes or more in the Senate, 60 out of 100 senators. And right now, no one has 60 votes, so the Democrats can't force anything through even the Senate, even though they have a small majority there. So we find ourselves in a very difficult situation in terms of legislation. And on top of that is, of course, the tremendous division between Democrats and Republicans. The Republicans are now in a situation where the Republican conservatives simply do not want to raise taxes and do not want to continue funding programs that are currently underway, and instead want to cut government programs. So from the point of view of public policy, environmental policy, coastal policy, and so on, 2011 and also 2012 is a period of pretty serious paralysis, frankly, in the United States. And we will have to just sort of keep an eye on what goes on, but I think not much is going to be going on. There's kind of a holding pattern. I guess from our perspective, we can hope that programs are not slashed that are currently in place for conservation, for coastal environmental restoration, for even things like beach renourishment have come up for criticism. And certainly we can hope that there's continued research on endangered species, on things such as marine protected areas and coral reef research and coral reef protection. I mean, there are programs underway that are funded, and there are certainly some private monies going into that as well. But my analysis right now for 2011 and 12 is that we suddenly are aware that we need to work very hard as scientists and students of coastal policy and coastal issues, that private donations, nonprofit groups, foundations, and other organizations like that are going to become increasingly vital to the continued work that we do, because we are in a budget crunch, and it is a budget crunch. It is not just that the conservatives and Republicans are essentially obstructing. It's that the revenue stream has diminished so much because of the recession. Tax revenues are down, fees are down, and so all the way from municipal and local governments to county government to state governments and then on to the federal government, there is a sudden tightening of budgets and shortfalls. So I guess it's an important lesson for us, because we become so dependent on government programs and government funding for coastal research, coastal zone management initiatives, that maybe this is the time for us to begin to start thinking more about nonprofits, which are very important in the United States. One thing that concerns me, and I'll kind of wrap up with that, is that there is discussion among some of the Republican candidates for president, in particular Herman Cain, and Rick Perry has also started talking about it, of revamping the U.S. tax code significantly in a very dramatic way. If that happens, one of the questions that comes up is whether we will continue to keep the deductions, tax deductions, tax deductibility for nonprofit groups and other organizations where people can give their money to a cause, a project, a program that is certified as nonprofit and write it off their taxes, and therefore have an incentive to give money to programs on environmental reconstruction and things like that. And so I would like to have us think about that, have you think about how all of those things converge and how that will potentially change how we do our business. Obviously, if the tax code is changed and there's no longer a line item deductibility for contributions to conservation trusts and research programs that are tax deductible, then even the private sector contributions for environmental and coastal policies and coastal planning and so on, may become scarce. So it's time to think outside the box, folks. Time to think about how we will do all of this in the future. And in some ways, it's very exciting because it challenges us to be very creative. So, see you in class.